Hey everyone, welcome to Hurricane Katrina, because today we're going to beat Elden Ring using only the magic Downpour spell. This spell, for those wondering, creates a big, fat, juicy blue ball in the sky that moves forward slowly shooting out magic beams. Kind of like a rain cloud or a hurricane, except not really at all. Who cares honestly though, because I sure don't. So my character will look like none other than a very poor copy of this guy. Mostly because his race is called Cloud Strider, and this spell is basically like a cloud. You know, Cloud Strider. They share a common theme, so you know what? Just deal with it, I guess. I also believe that if you were on like 17 different drugs, had 4 different STDs, and you imagine what a cloud would look like in a human form, it might just look like this. It also looks like a homeless crackhead you would find on the side of the road, so that's cool. Since I will be held against my will and be forced to use disgusting magic, I need to get the last bits of my melee strength monkey brain out of the way first. Much better. And then we go talk to Melina in order to get our horse, and then it just randomly turns night, I guess? It's probably explained in the 7th copy of the Elden Ring lore book that you need to sacrifice your sanity, your family, and your children in order to read. However, I'm only on the 6th copy at the moment, but next family gathering is looking pretty good, so I should receive the 7th if I'm lucky. I grabbed this flask that's, for legal reasons, is most definitely not just a bong. I grabbed these Sites of Grace because I do not trust myself to not die, and honestly, if I had to respawn all the way back in Limgrave, I probably would have just given up and ended the run.
Oh fuck yeah, brother. I'm hard as a rock.
There's a staff that increases the damage of certain spells, and this spell just so happens to match the description, so I need to find where the staff is located. It says that the staff is located in the highway lookout tower, but I have no idea where that random ass location is, because half of the rocks surrounding it are bigger than the actual tower itself. I finally find the tower though. You can clearly see that somebody with magic tried to murder me when I was going towards the tower, and then this fucker acted like nothing happened when I got to the top.
But you know what I like a lot more than materialistic things? Knowledge.
The magic Downpour spell is located in the Carian study hall and is dropped by Principal Muriel, and I know a shortcut to get down to the study hall a lot faster. Now, I was definitely not strong enough to beat her when I first entered, so instead of trying to beat her normally, I needed to think of a way to beat her without actually beating her. I tried using magic, it did not work. And then as I'm dying, she uses the spell I'm trying to get just to rub it in my face. I tried running away, I tried getting jump scared, I tried getting killed through the wall. I tried everything until I decided to just Sparta kick her in the mouth over and over again until she inched close enough to the elevator. And let me tell you, she was not cooperating with me at all. She kept trying to roll towards me, trying to get back up her staircase, which made no sense to me because why would she roll back towards the aggressor? Someone must have Stockholm Syndrome, so I had to emotionally manipulate her into going where I wanted until she just fell down the hole that I created. Once she got down there, I had to raise the elevator again and give her the silent treatment until she broke mentally and tried to approach me. The silent treatment worked out and she ended up ending her life out of misery and neglect, which is pretty tragic, but you know what?
We love casting spells. This song is sponsored by the Shadow Government.
I went straight to Margit after getting the spell, just to rain on his parade. This spell is the worst thing ever for bosses that move quickly, since the magic ticklers spread out in the direction of the enemy. So if the enemy moves past the ball, the ticklers have to rotate back to where the boss is, and it's a complete mess. And I mean rotate. They don't instantly snap to where the boss is, they actually rotate the ball in order to shoot. If you use the spell from distance, they spread out too much, so it barely even hits them. The ball only lasts for like 3 seconds after casting it, but you can charge it up to make it last for 5 seconds. That's a pretty big time increase if I do say so myself. However, if you manage to get the boss right under the ball and stay there, this thing gobagools them real hard. Since I went to fight Margit without preparing, I ran out of magic with the very last little bits of health. I didn't want to accept the fact that I got him this close to dying and ran out of magic until I remembered something. When I was looking for the lookout tower, I picked up this stupid starlight shard because I got lost and it was just kind of there. So I used it and I was able to finish the fight with Margit completely on a whim. I didn't plan to have to use it at all since I need the shard for later, but I was too stubborn to restart the fight, so here we are.
Michael! Don't leave me here! Michael! Michael! Help me!
In order to upgrade my weapon, I wanted to get the bell bearing instead of picking up shards next to Larry the Lobster and his brothers in Lemuria. But the Crystal Man takes like no damage before he's poise broken for the first time, so I had to take matters into my own hand, and like an old person that just smelled horseradish, I beat this man into submission with my staff until he fell over, and then I just stun-locked him with the spell into the corner. And I mean, I seriously stun-locked this man into the corner. This crystal thing stood absolutely no chance. The spell and the staff obviously scale with intelligence, so I need to get the tier that will make me cry, which in turn will make me much smarter. I'm also pretty sure there's a giant hand hidden in the ground somewhere around here, but I can't seem to find it, so if you do find it, please call. There's a magic tier that increases magic damage by 20%. The only problem is that this guy has it, and since I have low health and bad armor, getting hit by his melee attack instantly kills me, and I don't like that. So in order to avoid instant death, I play Ring Around the Rosie with this overgrown child, except the Rosie is a giant tree, and the overgrown child is a large fungus man. I had to keep circling the tree and hoping the magic bubble would actually hit him. Luckily, since he's pretty slow, the crystallized meth was able to infect his system and send him into a very serious medical emergency, but I'm not on his emergency contact list, so I need to get out of here. And instead I go to Godric to see how much better the crystal tears makes my damage. It's not that great, but I mean, it's aight. Godric is a somewhat big enemy and he doesn't really move around too much, so the spell works pretty well against Godric. Godric runs around like he's CSGO surfing, but the tracking on the spell chases him down. My main strategy was to cast the spell from somewhat of a distance and hope that he would charge at me, so it can actually hit him before it just decides to peace out. And once again, I ran out of magic at the very last second, but luckily, I had another Starlight Shard in my pocket that I have no idea where I actually picked up, and I was able to pull it out and use it to beat Godric. And then I realized I literally had another FP flask in my pocket the entire time, so the shard was a complete waste. This wizard tricked me by standing at this bookshelf for no reason because there's an invisible wall that I need to find. Once I find it, I can look around for a talisman that will increase my damage of my sorceries by a massive whopping 4%. Do you even understand how good that is? The spell during the Godric fight was doing 25 damage per hit. Keep in mind though, this is also with the extra 10 intelligence and the 20% increase from the crystal tears. So with the addition of the 4% talisman, this 25 damage goes up to 26. A whole 1 more damage. This thing is trash. I quickly beat this guy because I know Blide wants to help me fight him, but he's a furry, so I'm gonna snake him out of the fight by doing it before even talking to him, so he can't have any fun. I learned how to snap since I never learned how to, I suppose. I used the mating call I just learned to get Blide's attention. I talked to Blide about fighting Darwell, and he's such a greedy little bitch, he acts like he helped during the fight. Then I get the Carian talisman, which will decrease my skill cost by 25%. And yeah, I got this talisman with full confidence, believing that it will in fact decrease my spell cost by 25%, even though it clearly states it only affects skills. And I didn't realize this until way farther into the run, so yeah, I am pretty smart. I need to fight not Loretta, so that I can go kneel in front of Ronnie and beg for multiple things. But I'm not actually interested in Ronnie. I'm more interested in Professor Snape because he has access to a magic scorpion charm that I want for later when I have more talisman slots. However, Ghost Loretta's magic resistance is somewhat high, probably because she's vegan and not because she's a ghost, which means even with my amazing 4% talisman, my 10 intelligence, my 20% damage increase, and my staff being at +7, I do 19 damage per hit, which is not ideal, but you know what? I'll take it if it means I get whatever Professor Snape is cooking up. I wanted to get my horse up to Ronnie for personal reasons, but my horse killed himself instead. Then I talked to Professor Snape about drugging someone so he can turn them into a literal sex doll. I give the potion to some person named Necrophilia, but I've never been too good with faces or names, so this guy will have to work. Luckily for me, there's some white stains on the ground right over where his hidden lair is. Then I buy a naked man with a jar on his head, which I'm pretty sure counts as human trafficking at this point, but who's gonna stop me? I want to buy another one, but he tells me I'm broke as a joke and I'm not very funny, so I go pick up not just one Starlight Shard, but a second one to rub it in his stupid face. Then he tells me that he's no longer about the crypt life, and that I should become a blood instead by getting this one. So I get it and I change my gang affiliation, which pleases him so much that he gives me a Scorpion Charm that increases my magic damage by 12%, but also makes me take more damage, but it shouldn't be too bad. If Red Wolf had more health, this fight probably would have been one of the hardest because he just jumps around so much that the spell stands no chance of keeping up with him. The ball acts like a neglected child trying to get attention, which causes Red Wolf to start jumping around like he's doing Pilates. So I just have to keep spamming bubbles into the sky until they decide to actually hit him or for him to jump into them. There is no skill involved here, I'm literally just spamming magic at him hoping it'll hit. Which, now that I think about it, is exactly what Red Wolf does. The spell takes a little bit to get out when I use it, so I go get the Radagon icon in order to cast faster, so I can hopefully get enough particle effects on my screen that it just crashes my game, which I think would be pretty fun. So in order to get more particle effects, there's a helmet that decreases FP consumption by 25%. And I mean, it's literally a stuffed beetle, except the stuffing is my fat ass head, so I need it. But this giant pumpkin man does not want that to happen, which is just so rude of him. Even though I'm using magic, I still manage to play this game like I'm using a melee weapon, and as a result, it does not turn out well at all. And I mean, it was bad. I could not stop dying to Radon because I might be the greediest little gremlin to walk on the face of the earth, and I never learned my lesson. It also probably doesn't help that my physical resistance is actually in the negatives. So I needed some more runes in order to buy the basic armor set from the beautiful and lovely grannies, so I went to fight Margit again, because this guy is just kind of here for reasons, I guess, and he talks a whole lot of smack for someone who just has the same moves as the first main boss of the game. He could have gotten some different moves at least, considering he moved to a completely new location, but he's not even good enough for it, so it's the same fight as Margit, except I'm stronger now. After I beat Margit again, I was able to get the better armor, and then I just got super sidetracked. Instead of going back to Radon, I fought this Raging Bull instead for some reason, but it works out because eventually I'll need the Smithing Stone 7s for my weapon. I had like no healing because I goofed around in the cave too much and I drank them all, which resulted in a very cool moment where I got clapped, but I also clapped the boss at the same time, but since I can respawn and he can't, I win. When I fought the Tree Sentinel, I was fighting him normally, and then I kinda just stumbled next to this rock. And since the spell goes up into the sky, it's able to hit the Tree Sentinel from the other side of the rock with no problems. So I just kept head glitching behind this rock and he could do nothing to stop it. This guy on a horse actually lost to a rock in the corner of the arena that he stands at. This rock tanked more of his attacks than I dodged. And during the fight, it pissed him off so much that sometimes he would just slow walk back to where he started, completely defeated and upset. The only thing I had to watch out for was when he cast a single lightning bolt directly on top of me until the rock succeeded and proved it is the strongest thing in Elden Ring. After I beat the Tree Sentinel, I couldn't get into the capital because guess what? I never actually beat Radon to get the second Great Rune that's needed. So I went back to fight him now that I have better armor and my physical resistance isn't literally negative. Unfortunately, even after doing other things and changing my armor, the one thing that can't be changed is how greedy I am because I kept getting killed even when I got new stuff. So instead of doing that, I decided to actually become a spellcaster, and once I did, my ego shriveled among other things. Even though I am completely embarrassed and destroyed by having to play as a wizard, and I will eternally live in depression and shame for my actions, I'm pretty much over it now and I feel a lot better. I swear Godfrey's AI is completely trash because I have no idea why he even has the Cha-Cha Slide skate attack where he slams the ground in his moveset. Half the time he isn't even close enough to hit you, so I can just spam magic at him, and then instead of closing the distance to stop you, he electric slides again and gets even farther away and keeps repeating this process. Godfrey also has this problem with just standing there and slow walking until he gets hit. So I can spawn a bunch of children to chase him down and nibble his ankles before he even expects it. And then he proceeds to hit the gritty again over to the side, and then he just dies. And Margit has a super secret ability. He's able to move so much that he basically doesn't actually move. He does flips and tricks all the time, but then he cancels it out by doing nothing right after. And he somehow ends up right next to me before the first spell I sent out disappears. It's even worse due to the fact that he stands still during certain points in the fight, so the spell can just ruin his day and rain on his parade. Since Niall is a lazybones and sends his little goons after me first, I had to make sure I was far enough away from Niall when I started attacking his ghost, otherwise Niall thought he was cool enough to run me down. So I had to run around the edges of the arena and keep an eye on Niall so he didn't shove his abnormally large spear in my face. And then Niall decided to show off his calf strength and rub in my face how thick his thighs actually are. So he just spam jumped in the air, and even though he did it so many times that I could predict he was going to do it 5 minutes before he even started, I still managed to get hit by it multiple times because I guess I have Parkinson's and I just kept missing the roll button whenever I needed it. And then I get the first half of a medallion, then I get the second medallion from this old man, and I wanted to protect him, I really did, but if I attacked then I would have hit him. So I have to watch him get literally murdered by this cringe-lord perfume sucker. There's an upgraded magic talisman that increases my magic by 8% instead of 4%, but I can't get it yet because according to these statues, I believe I need to get 2 imps to kiss or something. So I go and buy some seductive dance moves from this guy for the imps, then I go to the imps in the tower and I shove this branch up one of their asses so they start hitting on the other one. So I can enter and get this amazing talisman that even combined with the worst version of it is still worse than a crystal tear that lasts 3 minutes for some reason. Fire Giant is a large chunky boy, so this spell is perfect for his fat ankles. Almost all the projectiles hit Fire Giant since he just sits there and lets it happen. He shows no resistance to getting squirted on by the spell, which I can't blame him because he is quite literally the Fire Giant, so it makes sense that he would actually want his parade to be rained on. Having all the fire must be terrible for him because he tries sending out his fireballs, and when he does, I send out my water balls to extinguish him. I enjoy this fight because I like seeing the damage numbers jump up to the thousands, even though each hit of the spell only does like 100 damage. But as long as I don't get too greedy, and I go for more clouds in the sky than I should, it was pretty easy, which usually meant I made 1 cloud and then I just waited for Fire Giant to do something until he drowned in the rain, even though it never got close to his mouth or nose. But then I stick my nose into the business of the Godskin duo because the number one thing this spell needs to work is a large enemy, a slow moving enemy, and a willing participant to drink all of the fluids I am spewing. I also don't know how to count, so there may be more conditions than you think. Since the Godskin duo just follow you in a line like a bunch of lost ducklings, you can water them like a plant and they won't do anything to stop it. In fact, one of them will just get stuck on the wall and accept his waterboarding until he snitches on the other one and tells me his weakness is also water. It's as simple as that, no strings attached, because these pillars that get destroyed allow me to hide behind them and still attack, while they have to be oh so silly and walk around them. And boy, do they hate walking. And then I go to Big Boss number 500, you guessed it, use my magic and rain on his parade. Which also means tucking inside of his right thigh, but not his left, because the right is much cozier. I do this so the magic can sit inside of him and hit him with every beam, but the magic has other plans because it rises above him, and when Dragonlord raises up, the magic decides to target his head so it misses somehow. Even when the magic is right inside of him, I still get unlucky and very sad. And using this spell, I managed to get Dragonlord to use his laser beams of death attack twice in the same fight, which is almost as bad as the Twin Towers, but I managed to escape them both, so lucky me. Since Malekith's health is not at all in tune with the late game bosses, the spell chunks away at him like crazy. He does not have enough health for being this late into the game, and I really don't understand why, because he's a really cool boss, ruined by the fact that he cannot compete with the power of rain clouds, because even if he moves away rather quickly, he's already taken so much damage he might as well just give up. Since the first phase he just runs towards you, you can just keep backing up and casting the spell until he stops, and then the second phase you can sit around the pillars and pre-cast the spell, and he'll eventually just run into him trying to get you. Or if you're a real asylum patient, you can sit right underneath him on his lap, because if you flipped him upside down, his hair would look like Santa's beard, and I believe this one won't touch you, but I'm not too sure.
Why are you running? Why are you running?
When I get to Moog, I instantly throw out some rain clouds, and he proceeds to count down how many boxes of mac and cheese are left. A lot of the time he just stands there and gets wet, and refuses to, move out of the way. So instead he just power walks his frustrations about being wet and then counts some more, until he realizes he's out of mac and cheese boxes, and repeats 3 times that there are in fact no more remaining. And like any mac and cheese connoisseur would do, when they realize they don't have any more, he grows wings and starts flying around like a high school fairy play, where you can clearly see the cables hanging from the ceiling. Except he has no parents to cheer him up, so instead he tries to impregnate his brother, which I'm pretty sure is against PDA regulations and guidelines, but I'll let it slide just this one time.
You don't understand why is you doing this, bro? I haven't did shit all day, bro, and you love you no matter what, bro. I don't... Bro, please, bro. Why are you doing... Shit!
Step off! Step off! Shit! They jumping me! They jumping me! Save your boy!
Oh no, it's the same fight from earlier in the manor, except this one is in color and not black and white. And yeah, it's the same exact thing as the other one I already fought, so see the previous example for inspiration instead. This is the cheapest, most dogshit fight I have ever honestly seen, but I am not upset by it. This definitely wasn't the fairest way to beat Gideon with this spell, but it definitely was the funniest, and if I'm being honest, it was his fault. All he had to do was walk around the pillar and corner me, but he kept trying to play the ego check game, thinking he could hit me if he kept trying. And the result was that he could in fact not hit me no matter how much he tried. Even if he did walk around the corner, I could just hop on the railing and get on the other side to restart the process. So no matter what, let's be honest, Gideon was doomed from the start. Once I finally get to this guy, I do some sick dodges, and then he fucks off somewhere else during the fight, which lets me queue up multiple attacks for him to slide right into. As long as I started casting after I dodged an attack, or when he decided to skateboard away from me, I was good. It's honestly pretty easy to beat him, and yes, I already know what you're thinking. Of course it's easy. I'm using magic. Yes, I have heard it all. I too am deprived of attention. What's even worse though is that he has less magic resistance in the second phase, so there is even more Armageddon and slaughter happening during it. Especially since after like the first attack I do, he's already looking up to the sky trying to drink more rainwater, which means even more rain comes and basically ends the fight right then and there. Melania actually took some high level intelligent plays to beat, the high level coming from the fact that the spell goes above her, or as you can say is higher than her, and the intelligent comes from the fact that the spell scales with intelligence. But honestly, when I cast the spell, she would sprint at me, and instead of running away, I made sure to stay near her, hoping that she would do her aerial kick attack, simply because she stays still the most during that attack, so I can get a bunch of damage on her. If she followed with a sword slam, it was even better. I mostly just tried to do everything I could to stop her from moving too much, especially in the second phase, since she usually follows up like 8 times after attacking once. Luckily she did Scarlet Aeona multiple times for some reason, which I didn't understand, but thank God she did, because she just sits there during it and she can't move the whole time. Then I move on to this guy and he parries the rain because he's allergic or something, but I actually wanted him to parry it, because when he does, he usually does a quick grab attack after, which is perfect for hitting him since he's stuck there doing nothing. If I was able to cast the spell close enough to him that he walked underneath the ball, then he was unable to deflect it and just tanked all the damage. The fight wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I thought he would deflect the entire ball rather than just a single missile, so when he didn't, I knew he was done for. And guess what? He was indeed done for. But here we are now at the final battle, and guess what we did? That's right, say it with me. We rained on his tax dollars, so the IRS will be contacting him any minute now, and since he's so big, the spell hits him a bunch, even when he tries to run away from it, because instead of going away from me, he goes right past me, which also means he goes right past the spell. But during the fight, I was actually scared he was going to cast Elden Stars twice in the same fight, since Dragonlord did the same thing, but he didn't. So I was pretty happy, and then, what do you know, I finally beat Elden Ring using only magic Downpour, also known as a literal rain cloud. So yeah, anyways,